You are 36 years old. Your knuckles stay split open half the year, and your lower back starts talking to you before the sun is up. You run 2 bays in a narrow brick shop on the edge of town, between a pawn shop and a laundromat that never closes. The sign out front says, Riverton Auto and Tire, but everyone just calls it your place. You bought it from an old man named Frank after spending 12 years under other people's lifts, doing oil changes, brake jobs, transmission swaps, and every rotten repair nobody else wanted. You know which customers pay cash, which ones stall, which ones lie about the sound their car made, and which ones show up only when they think they can sweet-talk you. You keep a coffee maker on a dented toolbox, a 12-gauge behind the office filing cabinet, and 3 months of overdue notices in a drawer you do not open before noon. You are not a hero. You are a mechanic with debt, grease under your nails, and a habit of solving the next problem in front of you. The day it starts, you are under a silver pickup changing a rusted-out fuel line, while your helper, Nate, is fighting with a stripped lug nut and losing. Nate is 19, talks too much, and thinks every job should be done with an impact gun and attitude. You tell him to stop forcing it, heat the stud, and do it right. He mutters. You slide out from under the truck on the creeper, and the first thing you notice is the radio. The local morning host is gone. In his place, some tense voice keeps repeating that there has been a violent incident at County General, and that people should avoid the downtown area. It sounds serious, but the kind of serious that usually fades by lunch. You wipe your hands on a rag, take a sip of burnt coffee, and tell Nate to finish the tire rotation before Mrs. Delgado comes in and starts asking why everything takes so long. Outside, traffic is heavier than usual. A siren passes, then another, then 3 more. By 9 in the morning, the waiting lot is full. A city bus sits half across the road with nobody in the driver's seat. 2 people run past the shop without looking in. Mrs. Delgado arrives in her old sedan, but she does not complain about the delay. She comes in fast, white-faced, clutching her purse so hard the strap is twisted around her wrist. She says people are fighting at the grocery store. She says a woman bit a cashier. She says her sister called from downtown crying, and then the line went dead. Nate laughs at first because it sounds insane, but even he stops when he hears the shouting outside. You step into the lot and see a man in a dress shirt pounding both hands on the hood of a stopped car. Not angry, not normal, just slamming his palms down over and over while the driver inside is screaming. Someone clips him with a side mirror and he barely reacts. You feel the first real shift then, the one that tells you this is not a bad morning. This is the kind of thing that breaks routine apart for good. The man in the dress shirt stumbles away from the road and comes straight toward your lot. His mouth is covered in blood. One side of his face is swollen and grey around the eye. He moves wrong, not slow exactly, but with no care for his own balance. Nate takes one look and backs toward the open bay. Mrs. Delgado starts crying and asking if she should call her son. You move without thinking. You grab the long breaker bar leaning against the alignment machine and step between the man and the office door. He gets close enough for you to smell him. Sweat, copper, something sour. His jaw works like he is trying to chew with nothing in his mouth. You shout at him to stop. He does not stop. He lunges with both hands, catches the front of your coveralls, and snaps his teeth at your throat. You swing the breaker bar hard into his temple. He drops to one knee, then starts getting up again. The second swing caves him sideways against the fender of Mrs. Delgado's car. The third keeps him down. Nate is staring at you. Mrs. Delgado is screaming. You stand there breathing through your teeth, looking at a man who should not have gotten up after the first hit. Then the whole street goes loud at once. Glass breaks somewhere nearby. A horn starts blaring and does not stop. A motorcycle slides on its side through the intersection. 2 people come out of the laundromat running, and one of them gets dragged down before he reaches the curb. Nate says your name 3 times before you answer him. He wants to leave. He wants to get his little sister from school. Mrs. Delgado wants you to fix her car right now so she can drive home. You look at the dead man in your lot, then at the road, then at the half-disconnected fuel line hanging under the pickup on your lift. Every part of your normal day is still sitting where you left it. Air hose on the floor, ratchet on the cart, parts invoice on the counter. and none of it matters now. You tell Nate to shut the front bay doors. You tell Mrs. Delgado to get in the office and lock it. You drag the dead man by his collar and belt loop just far enough to clear the door track, while Nate slaps the control button. The steel doors roll down with a grinding rattle that sounds too slow. Something hits the outside before they fully close. Inside the shop, the air changes. The outside noise drops to a muffled wall of chaos, but you can still hear enough to know it is spreading fast. Nate keeps pacing in front of the toolboxes, pulling out his phone, getting no signal, swearing, trying again. Mrs. Delgado sits in your office chair with both hands over her mouth. You lock the side door to the alley, then the office door, then kill the open sign and front lights. The fluorescent strips over the bays stay on, bright, flat, exposing everything. The shop smells the same as always. Oil, rubber, brake cleaner, hot metal, but your chest feels tight in a new way. You are thinking inventory now. Not parts inventory, survival inventory. 2 vehicles on lifts, 1 pickup half apart and a compact sedan needing a water pump. 1 customer truck outside that belongs to the feed store, dropped off early, keys in the lockbox. Shelves of oil, cases of coolant, bottled water in the mini fridge. 1 shotgun with a half box of shells. Propane torches, chain, cables, welding gear, heavy gloves, eye shields, steel-toe boots. Things built for work, not war, but work is what you know. You make the first hard decision fast. Nobody stays here waiting for rescue. This shop sits on a commercial strip with glass fronts, wide roads, and nowhere secure once night comes. Your apartment is upstairs over the hardware store 3 blocks away, which is no good either. But your older brother Dean has a salvage yard outside town, fenced, packed with dead vehicles, fuel tanks, batteries, and a cinder block office with barred windows. If there is any place that makes sense for a mechanic, it is there. You tell Nate the plan. He says his sister first. You tell him the school is in the wrong direction, deep in traffic, and if the roads are blocked, he is dead before he gets halfway. He says he is going anyway. You look at him and see what he needs from you. Not permission, hope. You cannot give him honest hope, so you give him a truck key. The feed store flatbed is old, heavy, and already outside. Diesel, push bumper. You pop the lockbox, hand him the ring, and tell him to stay off the main road. Do not stop for anyone. And if the truck dies, keep moving on foot. He grabs a pry bar, a flashlight, and your hand for half a second before he bolts through the alley exit when you crack it open. The door slams behind him. He is gone. Mrs. Delgado hears all of this and starts begging you not to leave her. You do not have family in the city. She does. But she is 62, shakes when she stands, and has no chance alone. You tell her she comes with you if she can follow directions without argument. She nods so hard it makes you nervous. You go to the office, pull the shotgun from behind the cabinet, check the tube, and hand her your smallest revolver from the desk safe. You show her how to point it, how not to keep her finger on the trigger, and then you take it right back because her hands are shaking too much. Better no gun than a bad gun. You stuff water bottles, jerky, batteries, zip ties, and a first aid kit into a parts box. Then you head for the rear bay where your own tow truck sits nose out, backed in the night before after a late recovery. It is 12 years old, scarred, and ugly in the way reliable things usually are. The winch works. The engine runs clean. The fuel tank is 3/4 full. You have driven it in snow, floods, and 1 tornado warning. Today it becomes the closest thing you have to a plan. Getting the tow truck out means opening the rear roll-up door to the alley. Before you do, you kill the compressor, shut the gas line to the heaters, and unplug anything you do not want starting a fire if the place gets hit later. Habit. Even now, habit matters. You slide a welding apron over Mrs. Delgado's shoulders and tell her to stay close to the truck's passenger side. When the rear door rattles up, bright daylight cuts into the bay, and you hear the alley before you see it. Trash blowing, feet slapping concrete, someone crying around the corner. You lower your shoulders, step out first, and scan left, right, roofline, dumpsters, fence gap. Clear enough. You get Mrs. Delgado into the cab, climb in, and hit the ignition. The diesel turns over on the second crank, loud enough to make you wince. The truck shudders alive. You back out into the alley, glance once in the mirror at your shop, and see the front steel doors buck inward as something slams against them from the street. Then, you are moving. The 3 blocks to your apartment should take 2 minutes. They take 12. Cars are jammed at bad angles, doors hanging open, engines idling where people abandoned them in panic. A delivery van is sideways in an intersection with one rear tire still spinning. A woman is standing on the roof of a sedan screaming for help while 2 figures in hospital scrubs pull at the car doors below. You keep the tow truck slow and steady, pushing wrecked bumpers aside with your front bar when you have to, avoiding the pile-ups you cannot power through. Mrs. Delgado keeps asking if those are sick people or crazy people. You do not answer because the truth is, you do not know yet. At the hardware store, the front windows are smashed. Your upstairs unit is reached by an outside stair around back. You stop in the alley, tell her to lock the doors, and run up with your shop keys in one hand and the shotgun in the other. Your apartment is small and dirty, but everything you need is where you left it. Duffel bag, work boots, 2 boxes of shells, cash in a coffee tin, extra phone charger even though the towers are failing. A framed photo of your ex turned face down on the dresser. You leave the photo. On your way back down, you hear your downstairs neighbor, Mr. Lyle, shouting from inside the hardware store. He is banging on the stockroom door and calling your name. You should keep moving. Every second matters. But he is 70, mean in a familiar way, and he once stayed open late so you could buy pipe insulation during a freeze. You break the back stockroom latch with a shoulder hit and find him trapped behind toppled shelving, one ankle pinned. He is pale with pain and bleeding from the scalp. You drag the shelf aside, haul him up, and get him limping toward the alley. Then the front of the store erupts with crashes and hard impacts against the display racks. You see hands reaching through the broken glass. Mr. Lyle says he cannot run. You tell him good, then do not. You half carry him into the alley, throw him into the truck bed behind the cab, tarp him with old moving blankets, and climb back in. Your tow truck is full now. One terrified older woman in the passenger seat, one bleeding old man in the back. You know enough about body trauma to keep looking at that scalp wound and asking yourself whether blood loss is the only problem. The road out of town is worse than downtown ever gets on fair weekend. People are driving on medians, sidewalks, through gas station lots, anywhere they think gives them an edge. That is what makes it lethal. Nobody is flowing. Everybody is forcing. You know roads, engines, failure points. Panic turns a city into a junkyard fast. So you cut away from the highway and use what you know instead. Side streets, service lanes. The route tow operators use when they do not want to sit in traffic with a loaded car. You pass behind a strip mall, through a fenced lot you open with bolt cutters from the truck's side box, and out along a drainage road that runs behind the warehouses near the river. Halfway there, a man in a blood-smeared utility vest waves you down in the road, shouting that his wife is hurt. There is someone slumped in the passenger seat of a compact car behind him. He looks desperate. Then you notice the car's hood is cold and the front tires are turned hard into the curb. Staged. Too neat. You do not stop. He changes expression the second you roll past. His hand comes out from behind his leg holding a pistol. He fires once into your rear panel and dives back as you swerve. The world was already ending. Now the people who understand that are starting to use it. At the River Warehouse district, the first real horde hits you. You do not have a better word for it by then. 20, maybe 30 of them, stumbling out from loading bays and between trailers, drawn by engine noise, movement, whatever part of the brain is still grabbing at targets. Some are fresh, some already torn up. One has a forklift vest on. One is barefoot. One is missing most of an ear. You punch the throttle and the tow truck drives straight through the first 3 hard enough to bounce your teeth. Mrs. Delgado is crying openly now. Something slams the passenger door. Another body rolls under the rear wheels and the truck hops. You keep both hands locked on the wheel. A box trailer blocks half the lane ahead, jackknifed across the road. There is no clean path through. You make a mechanic's choice, fast and ugly. You angle toward a parked sedan on the shoulder, hook it blind with the tow arm while still rolling, drag it sideways into the cluster behind you, and use the moving wreck as a barrier. It tears free 10 seconds later, but those 10 seconds open enough space for you to cut left through a warehouse gate and out the far side. Mr. Lyle starts pounding weakly on the rear window of the cab once you clear the district. You stop behind an abandoned machine shop and check him. He is sweating hard. His pupils look off. He keeps asking whether you left the register open at his store, which makes no sense. You wrap his ankle tighter, clean his scalp, and find a deep bite in the flesh under his left arm where his shirt is soaked through. He tries to hide it from you even now. Says it happened on broken glass. It did not. You know torn tissue. You know the difference between cuts and teeth. Mrs. Delgado sees your face and starts saying no before you speak. Mr. Lyle sees it too. He stops talking. The silence goes flat and ugly. He asks you one direct question. Is it those things? You tell him yes. He nods once, slow, and asks you to do it before he loses himself. You do not want that choice. You do not get to refuse it. You help him sit against the back tire, give him water, and stay with him longer than is smart. When his hands start snapping at the air and his eyes stop tracking you, you end it with one close shotgun blast that rings across the whole block. That shot changes everything. Every head in earshot turns. You hear them before you see them, feet scraping, bodies colliding with chain-link guttural moans rising from the nearby yards and service roads. You drag Mr. Lyle's body clear, slam the truck door, and drive with both rear tires throwing gravel. Mrs. Delgado is shaking so hard her seatbelt strap is rattling. You tell her to breathe. You tell yourself the same thing. The salvage yard is still 6 miles out. 6 miles in normal conditions is nothing. 6 miles now might be the whole story. You check the gauges. Fuel is just over half. Oil pressure good. Engine temp steady. You count assets because it keeps your head straight. 1 tow truck. 1 shotgun. 4 shells left in the tube. More in the duffel. 1 pry bar. 1 flare gun in the side compartment. 1 old woman who trusts you because you have not quit yet. You pass a church with both front doors open and nobody moving outside. You pass a sheriff's cruiser nose first in a ditch. You pass a man pedaling a child's bicycle with a rifle across his back. The town you know is breaking into random pieces. You reach the county road leading to Dean's yard around noon and almost miss the turn because of the smoke. Something is burning near the propane depot a mile east, and a dirty black column is pushing across the road. You cut through it, coughing, eyes watering, and come around the bend to find the main gate at the salvage yard hanging open. Your stomach drops at once. Dean never leaves that gate open. Never. You ease the truck in slow, horn off, engine idling low. The yard is a maze of stacked wrecks, stripped frames, shipping containers full of parts, and rows of dead cars parked so tight they make lanes of shadow between them. If you know the layout, it is a fortress. If you do not, it is a trap. You stop by the office block and call his name. No answer. The chain on the personnel door is cut. Inside, the radio is dead. A mug is shattered on the floor, and there is blood on the desk calendar, fresh enough to still be dark red. Mrs. Delgado whispers that maybe he got out. You hope she is right. Then you hear a wrench clatter somewhere deep in the yard. You know this place almost as well as your own shop. Dean taught you half of what you know here, handing you alternators at 12 years old and yelling at you not to mix metric sockets with standard. The fuel tank for the generator sits behind the parts shed. The main fence has 3 weak spots. There is a service pit in Bay 2 that nobody covers right. There is also a catwalk over the crusher platform that gives you a clean view of the east rows. You tell Mrs. Delgado to lock herself in the office bathroom and not open for anyone but you. Then, you take the pry bar, the shotgun, and start moving through the lanes. The first body you find is not Dean. It is one of his yard guys, Trevor, face down between 2 pickups with half his neck torn out. The second is worse. A woman you do not know, maybe a customer, jammed under the bumper of a stripped SUV, fingers worn bloody from trying to crawl. She is dead. Then a voice cuts through the rows, ragged but alive. Dean. He is shouting from the far fence near the tire stacks, telling you not to come straight in. You cut right instead of left because you know exactly what he means. The center lane is blocked with stacked scrap, and there is only one opening through, which makes it the dumb route if something is waiting. You climb the side of a low car pile, step across roofs, and get eyes on the tire stacks from above. Dean is trapped on the loader platform, one arm bloody, swinging a steel hook at anything that comes close. 3 infected are circling below, another trying to climb the steps. And on the far side of the fence, maybe 20 more are pressed against the chain link, drawn by his yelling. He sees you, and points hard toward the forklift shed. Not at him, at the forklift. That is your brother. Even now, thinking in equipment. You sprint across the roofs, drop down, shoulder through the shed, and find the big diesel lift parked with the forks low and the key still in. You hit ignition, crank the wheel, and ram straight into the infected on the stairs. One disappears under the frame. Another flips off the side rail. You jam the forks up under the loader platform, lift just enough to bridge the gap to a stack of compacted scrap cubes, and Dean gets it. He drops from the platform to the raised forks, then to the scrap cubes, then to you. You do not hug. You do not talk. You both know the next move matters more. The east fence is bowing inward. Dean says a delivery truck crashed through the outer gate an hour ago and brought half the road in behind it. He was trying to shut the inner yard when Trevor got taken. Dean got bit. You grab his arm and check. Not a bite. Long gash from sheet metal. Ugly but clean enough. Good. You tell him Mrs. Delgado is in the office. He says then, you have about 5 minutes before that fence folds. The salvage yard is useful only if you can seal it. You look over the rows and start assigning tasks before the fear can get traction. Dean to the generator shed to start backup power for the floodlights and office freezer because the main grid is flickering. You to Bay 2 for the welder and the old plow truck with the welded front blade. The plan comes together in the same place repair plans always do, right in the middle of the mess. You are not clearing all of them. You are changing the terrain. You are going to use the dead cars, the plow truck, and the narrow lanes to seal the breach and turn the yard back into something defendable. You fire up the welder in Bay 2, throw on a face shield, and work while the world is coming apart outside. That part almost steadies you. Heat, sparks, steel, motion. The plow truck has not run in 6 months, but Dean kept it fueled. You swap in a charged battery from the rack, bridge a corroded cable end, hit the starter, and the engine coughs alive in a cloud of old exhaust. Good enough. You back it through the bay doors while Dean rolls junk axles and engine blocks into a rough barrier line near the east breach. Then the fence gives way with a full-body metallic snap. The chain link drops, and infected spill in through the gap along with 2 screaming civilians who were apparently pinned outside and saw the opening as salvation. One of them makes it 10 feet before something grabs him by the leg and drags him down. The other, a teenage girl in a gas station uniform, sprints straight toward the office. You lay on the horn and drive the plow truck hard into the gap. The blade catches 2 bodies and folds them under the front. You keep pushing. This is where being a mechanic saves your life in a way a gun never could. You know weight. You know traction. You know how much abuse old frames take before they twist. You angle the plow truck into the breach, wedge its front end against a stack of scrap rims, then use the hydraulic arm on a nearby loader to dump a pallet of transmissions across the exposed section of fence. It is not clean. It is not permanent. It works. The incoming flow narrows from a flood to a crawl. Dean starts driving wrecks into place with the forklift, slamming them nose first against the weak point one after another, until the gap becomes a wall of bent steel and shattered glass. You climb out only when the line is holding. The teenage girl makes it to the office, pounding on the door. Mrs. Delgado lets her in despite your instructions, which would annoy you under any other circumstance. Right now it saves a life. One infected scrambles over the hood of the plow truck and grabs your shoulder from behind. You jam the pry bar backward into its mouth, spin, and drive it through the eye socket. It goes down twitching at your boots. By late afternoon, the yard is quiet in the worst way. Not safe, just sealed for the moment. Dean gets the main gate chained with 3 logging chains and 2 padlocks. You drag bodies away from the office entrance. The girl from the gas station says her name is Kayla. 18, no bite, no family with her. Manager locked the doors and ran. She does not cry. She just keeps asking for a phone charger and then staring at the dead screen when nothing happens. Mrs. Delgado finds canned soup in Dean's office stash and heats it on a camp stove. You sit on an upturned brake drum and finally feel your hands shaking. That is when the radio catches a usable signal for the first time in hours. A state emergency voice says to shelter in place, avoid contact with infected individuals, and wait for military instructions. Then the signal cuts to screaming, gunshots, and silence. Dean looks at you over the rim of his coffee mug. Nobody says what both of you are thinking. Shelter in place only works if the place can hold. This place can hold maybe, but only if you keep working. You spend the next 2 hours turning a junkyard into a system. Floodlights wired to backup. Fuel drums moved behind concrete barriers. The office roof cleared for lookout. Bay 1 converted into sleeping space because it has no exterior windows. You and Dean strip batteries from 6 cars and stack them on trickle chargers. You siphon gas, mark full tanks with yellow chalk, drain bad fuel into waste barrels. You build noise traps from hanging brake rotors and scrap chain on the fence line so anything pushing through will ring metal before it reaches the inner lanes. Kayla proves useful immediately. She can drive stick, which matters, and she follows directions without drama. Mrs. Delgado turns out to have worked 30 years in a school cafeteria and takes over food inventory with the kind of authority nobody argues with. It is the first small shift away from panic. Not calm, not hope, structure. That matters more. When people stop staring and start doing jobs, they last longer. Near sunset, Nate comes back. You hear the feed store flatbed outside the gate before you see it, grinding in low gear with one rim scraping and sparks jumping off the road. Dean gets his rifle up and you climb the catwalk for angle while the truck bangs against the chained gate and stalls. For 1 second you think the whole thing is about to become another bad choice, another fake rescue with a gun behind it. Then the driver door opens and Nate falls out, covered in dust and blood that is not all his. He is alive. Barely. There is a girl in the passenger seat, maybe 12, holding a wrench in both hands so tight her fingers are white. His sister is not with him. That answer hits before he says it. You and Dean drag the gate open just wide enough to pull them through, then chain it again while shapes start moving out on the road, drawn by the engine noise. Nate keeps trying to talk and cannot get enough air. You put him on the creeper in Bay 1 and cut open his shirt. Bruised ribs, glass cuts. Bite. You search hard. Nothing. He tells you the school was already overrun. He found his sister's backpack in the street. The girl with him was hiding under a bus. He could not leave her. That is all he says before he starts shaking. Dark changes the rules. The infected outside do not stop. They keep drifting to sound, piling along the fence, testing every weak point by accident or by pure pressure. You learn fast that headlights are a bad idea, and floodlights need discipline. Too much light gives them targets. Too little gives them cover. So you work in zones. East fence lit, west dark, office dim, roof blackout except for quick checks. You take first watch because there is no chance you sleep anyway. From the roof you can see the town in slices between the trees and low buildings. Fires in 3 directions. No real traffic now. Just scattered movement and the occasional burst of gunfire. Around midnight, a group of 4 men approaches the gate carrying flashlights and a white rag tied to a crowbar. Not infected, not harmless. They call out asking for fuel and shelter. You call back asking if anyone is bitten. They say no. One of them keeps his right hand behind his leg. You have already seen that once today. Dean stands beside you with the rifle. You tell them to leave the road and keep moving. They start cursing. One shines his light up at the office windows. Then a noise trap on the east fence starts ringing wild, and all 4 men run without another word. That tells you plenty. Around 2 in the morning, the real test comes. Something heavy slams the western perimeter, hard enough to shake the office shelves. Then again. Not random walkers. Weight, momentum. You wake everyone, grab keys, and run the inner lane with Dean. A city bus has rolled down the slope from the county road, driver long gone or dead, and crashed nose first into the outside fence. The impact crushed 2 posts and bent the chain link low enough for infected to climb over the front hood and spill into the outer row of cars. The bus itself is full of them, pressing against cracked glass, arms reaching through broken windows. You do not have time to clear them one by one. You do what mechanics do when a machine is too damaged to save and too dangerous to leave running. You isolate and destroy. Dean brings the loader. You bring the torch, while he uses the bucket to pin the bus at an angle against a stack of dead vans. You cut the exposed fuel line under the chassis, soak the front ditch in spilled diesel from a salvage tank, and light it with a road flare. Fire rolls under the bus, then up the front quarter. It gets hot fast. Too hot. You back off before the first tire blows. The noise pulls more infected, but the fire solves the breach. Heat drives them back from the opening long enough for Kayla, of all people, to use the forklift to shove 2 stripped SUVs into the gap, while you and Dean chain them together through the frames. The bus burns for almost an hour, throwing off black smoke and popping glass. It is dangerous, ugly, and impossible to miss. By the time it collapses into itself, you have a new wall in place and a fresh problem. Now the whole county can probably see your salvage yard. Mrs. Delgado treats Nate's ribs while the younger girl, Emily, finally says her name and asks whether she can sleep in the tow truck because it smells normal. You tell her yes. That answer nearly breaks you for a second. Smells normal. Grease, coffee, old vinyl, chain oil, work smell, human smell. You sit in the driver's seat after she curls up on the bench and realize the cab feels more solid than your own apartment ever did. Morning comes grey and mean. Nobody is rested. Everybody is alive. That counts. You check the perimeter, tighten chains, swap drained batteries for charged ones, and try the radio again. This time, you get fragments. National Guard mobilization. Quarantine zone failed. Multiple counties lost. Citizens advised to avoid hospitals and evacuation centers unless specifically directed. That last part matters. It means the usual safe places are dead ends now. Dean lays out the long-term problem in one sentence, while both of you stand over a hand-drawn map on the office desk. Fuel, food, and noise. The yard has tools, shelter, metal, and defensible lanes. It does not grow anything. It also sits close enough to town that every loud move drags trouble. You need supply runs, but smart ones. Small engines, quiet vehicles, fast entries. That is mechanic thinking too. Not speed for its own sake. Efficiency, wear and tear. What gets you there and back without breaking at the worst time? So you build the next plan before breakfast. 2 motorcycles from row C, both repo recoveries, both repairable. One gets a new battery, fresh plugs, drained tank, and a patched fuel line by noon. The other needs more time. Kayla sorts parts while Nate works seated, stubborn and pale, handing you tools and trying to act useful enough not to think about his sister. Emily tears labels off canned food and makes neat stacks because kids need tasks too. Mrs. Delgado writes names on masking tape and sticks them to shelves. Food, water, medical, ammo, tools. Simple words, clear order. Dean checks the outer berm with binoculars and reports movement on the county road, but no organized groups yet. Then he pauses and says, "You have a visitor. Not at the gate. At the fence near the south row." You go with the shotgun ready and find a man in a deputy's uniform leaning on the chain link, white as paper, hand pressed to his stomach. He says he has information. He says a convoy is heading west tonight and there is a National Guard checkpoint at the fairgrounds. Then he lifts his hand and you see the bite under it. He knows what it means. You can tell by the way he stays back from the fence and does not ask to be let in. He talks fast while he still can. Downtown is gone. The jail opened by accident during a transfer crash. County General collapsed first. The fairgrounds held for a while, then started pushing civilians away unless they had military transport. A lot of people are headed west on their own. He says roads will be packed by sundown. He says, if you have somewhere defensible, you may be better off staying. That is the real information buried under the rest. Stay, build, hold. He asks for water and for you not to let him turn on the road. Dean hands him a bottle through the fence with a catch pole. You stay with him until his words stop making sense, then do what has become one more job nobody trained you for. Afterward, Dean looks at the yard, the welded gates, the rows of stripped vehicles, the patched walls, and the people already moving from task to task inside it. He says the fairgrounds sound doomed. He says this place sounds hard. Hard is better. By the time the sun drops again, you are standing on the office roof with black grease still on your wrists, looking over a salvage yard that has turned into a survivor's camp in less than a day. Chains hang from the fence lines. The tow truck is backed into a protected lane for fast exits. The motorcycles are under tarps, one ready. The plow truck sits by the east breach with the blade down. Dean has the rifle. Nate has a wrapped chest and a socket wrench in his pocket. Kayla can run the forklift. Mrs. Delgado has food rationed out for 3 days strict, 5 if you stretch. Emily is asleep in the cab with an old shop rag folded under her head. Outside the fence, the dead keep moving through the dark, bumping against steel, following noise, testing every weak point without ever understanding what they are touching. Inside the fence, the lights stay low and the tools stay close. You are tired enough to shake, scared enough to stay sharp. And for the first time since morning, the thought in your head is not how fast everything is falling apart. It is simpler than that. You are a mechanic. Things break. You keep them running. Tonight, the thing you are keeping alive is all of you.